Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the way the Conservatives made this last week all about their asylum plans, and then, after attracting everyone's attention, promptly showcase their staggering incompetence again. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So I've said it before and I'll say it again, these clowns cannot even do evil right. Which I suppose is a silver lining. Recently, I've been wondering why Labour have not been taking advantage over the slow news weeks of August by making major policy speeches. News outlets are desperate for something to report on. But if I were being charitable, I might conclude that perhaps Labour think it's better not to interrupt the Tories when they're making themselves look proper fools. A little bit like Michelle O'Neill largely chilling out while the DUP do her job for her. After all, look at what happened this week. The Tories made the news all about their asylum barge in Dorset. There was also supposed to be one in Liverpool and another in Edinburgh, but the local authorities there told them to get knotted. All very embarrassing that the government of an island nation ordered some barges and then two had to be turned back because they couldn't find anywhere for them to be berthed around an island. Not to worry though, the Tories still managed to hand over a load of public money to their mates, and that's the important thing. But after that little embarrassment, do you think they paused for thought? Do you think, that perhaps they decided to think through their plans with the one barge they could get docked, to avoid looking like idiots again? No, not a bit of it. The Fire Brigade Union warned the government about their serious safety concerns. Not interested, said the Tories. But aren't you worried that the barge isn't safe? No, it's fine. A few days later, they evacuated the several dozen asylum seekers that they were able to house there. Oh, you seem to be disembarking everyone. Is there a problem? Yeah, it seems the barge isn't safe. They just never seem to miss an opportunity to make complete clowns out of themselves. Granted, the safety issue which led to the evacuation was not fire safety related, but biological. Seems there was a spot of Legionnaire's disease present. Now, this didn't just spring up in the couple of days that the refugees were being accommodated there. What has happened was the Tories were in such a rush for their headlines, they didn't wait for all the tests to come back from the lab. Bereat, they said, bereat. Only it wasn't, was it? So instead of making sure everything was ready, they rushed in, only had to have to retreat embarrassingly. And this is exactly what happened. The news reports make clear that asylum seekers were moved onto the barge before the test results had come back. That cavalier were they just didn't bother to wait for the safety inspections to be completed. It's like in 2020, isn't it? We need to move a load of elderly hospital patients into care homes to make way for a load of COVID patients. Should we test them to make sure they don't have COVID before sending them into care homes where the most vulnerable people in the country are? No need for that. What could go wrong? Mind you, I saw reports suggesting that the government carried on sending some asylum seekers on board even after the results came back that we had in fact hired a plague ship. Now, I don't think there was a conscious decision to do that. I think what's happened is there was a complete breakdown of communication. In other words, this operation that Suella Braverman has put together is, well, it's not exactly a nimble, efficient operation, shall we say that? And let's examine just what a cock-up this is for the Tories, right? It's August. Now, this is traditionally a very slow month for news. It's not necessarily in every country, but in this country it is. For political news, that is. Because Parliament's in recess. So the usual Westminster clown show is on hiatus. Now, we haven't had one of these August for a few years. It's called silly season, by the way, because political journalists still have to come up with news and they're struggling. So they call it silly season because they have to make something out of nothing. We haven't had one for a few years because last year it was the Tory leadership contest, providing lots of news. The year before it was how Boris Johnson was trying to move on from, he tried to convince the country there was no such thing as COVID anymore. And it was how he was going to, take the levelling up agenda forwards. The previous year was COVID. The previous year, Boris Johnson had just been made Prime Minister, and it was how's he going to deal with Brexit. The year before that, it was the final stages of Theresa May and the withdrawal agreement. The year before that, Theresa May had just gone to the polls to try and increase her majority and then lost it. The year before that, we just had the Brexit referendum. So there was lots of discussion about Brexit. Basically, as a result of the chaos of choosing David Cameron over Ed Miliband, we haven't had a silly season for a while. This is the closest we've had for many years. But, you know, with all of these things, this year we have now had a more traditional slow August. And I'll tell you about how it used to be. You know, when political journalists were just so short of a story, they had to make something out of nothing. Many years ago, when Labour had first come to power, right, the big political news one summer was, so Tony Blair had gone on holiday, he was the Prime Minister, John Prescott was the Deputy Prime Minister. And the news was all about John Prescott playing croquet. What's he doing playing croquet? He's supposed to be running the country. It's like, it's summer, he's allowed to play what? Well, what if there's an emergency? Is there an emergency? No? Okay. If there is, I'm pretty sure he can put the croquet mallet down and get himself to the Cabinet Office briefing rooms. But, you know, that's all they had. That's what political journalists have to come up with when you don't have the Keystone Cops running the country. So absolutely anything remotely political will get reported. If there is actual political news, it will get reported because news outlets are desperate. 'Tis the season to report on how many times hospitals have to deal with unexplained vegetables up people's bums or a cat going missing somewhere in Hampshire. They're really scratching around. It's not a cat pun, by the way. So when the deputy chair of the Conservative Party drops an F-bomb to publicise the Tories' latest moves on accommodating asylum seekers, the journalists breathe a sigh of relief and get reporting. And because political news isn't coming thick and fast, there's nothing to displace it from the front pages when it goes tits up. So it's very much the theme of the week. People are talking about it. Then you get to Friday and the government pulls asylum seekers from their plague barge. Well, people are interested now because it's been in the news all week. Why were they pulled off? Because of a disease. Was the disease there already or did someone take it on board? No, it's there already. So why were they ever put on board? Because the government couldn't run a bath, much less a country. And how much have we paid for this plague barge? Well, £1.6 billion. Couldn't we have just bought our own for that? Oh yeah, you could get a modern battleship for that much money. But like I say, the Tories look at all public expenditure as an opportunity to make either themselves or their patrons very rich. Value for public money is not really their thing. But it is worth dwelling on that £1.6 billion for barges because, remember, they haven't just overpaid for them. We shouldn't need them. These barges, we shouldn't need them. If the government processed asylum claims properly, it's money we could have saved. Literally, if we just process asylum claims, the claim either fails, in which case we deport them, no more money spent on them, or it succeeds, in which case, well, they can do some work and then they're paying into the Treasury. You know, this of course must be quite spectacularly embarrassing for the government, of course, and because they've spent all week drawing people's attention to it, even more embarrassing. Suella Braverman is fast acquiring a reputation for incompetence, the likes of which her party have not seen since the days of Chris Grayling. He was the one who ordered boats as well, by the way. But for Brexit purposes this time, we needed ferries to cope with a hard Brexit. But he ordered them from a company that didn't have any ferries or any experience of running ferry services. Braverman did at least get a boat. 1 out of 3, but a boat. So she may have a while to go before she can beat Grayling there. But she's getting there. She's getting there. In fact, I'm going to be discussing wider incompetence issues in the stream tonight. And you think, well, so maybe this is why Labour aren't trying to displace Tory antics in the news. Maybe that's why they're chilling. It's like that episode of The Simpsons, isn't it? You can imagine Labour MPs sat there with their feet up watching the Tories, telling each other, get ready, they're about to do something stupid. No doubt Rishi Sunak will come back from his holiday to Disneyland to wonder why poll ratings are still looking bad for him. Maybe one day the penny will drop that cartoon characters are entertaining on holiday. You shouldn't put them in charge of government departments. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.